Hey, it's Monk. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good. Okay, I'm trying to nail something down here. The place in Pasadena that you were mentioning to me about the test firings, or reloading maybe it was?
Oh, Greens.
Okay, now, was that on Arroyo Seco, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay, bada bing. That's confirmation. Because that's exactly what Holt says he was doing in Pasadena at Arroyo Seco.
Yeah, right next to Greens was a smaller gun store.
Okay.
And back in the 60s, you could buy the Thompson submachine gun that was a deactivated war trophy. The barrel had lead block in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the laws were real lax. So you'd buy the Thompson submachine gun, go next door, buy a new barrel,
Mm-hmm.
and take it home and exchange barrels. Now you had a fully active machine gun.
Okay. Now, was there do you recall, was there, I guess that was a sporting goods store, right, Greens?
Yeah.
Okay, now, does this name ring a bell? Martin Rettig.
I've heard that somewhere.
Martin Rettig, okay. Because according to Holt, that is the man that imported the Carcano that Oswald used. And that this Greens apparently had, tons of Carcanos that are all over the place there.
Yeah, it was kind of, they had connections with local 00 domestic contact service.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good.
Had guys working in there because they weren't much interested in the ATTU interest. They were very much interested in foreigners picking up weapons and taking them south.
Mm-hmm. South to
Mexico, Cuba,
yeah.
anti-Castro types, or anti-Batista types, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys that picked up a lot of weapons there was Guy Gabaldon, and he made the front page of the L.A. Times right after the Bay of Pigs, where he was photographed in front of an old F4U Corsair like they use in Baba Black Sheep series, saying he was going to organize a group and go fight Castro. The woman he married was a niece of former president of Mexico, Aleman. And Gabaldon is the guy they made a movie about. Jeff Hunter played him. And it was about how in the Pacific as a Marine, because he had been raised by Japanese-American foster parents, Niseis, he spoke perfect Japanese, and he caused a lot of Japanese to come out of the caves and surrender, so they made a movie about him in the 60s.
Yeah.
But he went into Mexico and started operating there almost immediately there in 61. And working close with the company and with the Mexican military and civil officials. And had a house down there in Baja, south of Tijuana.
Did you, by the way, did your son help you figure out how to get the attachments downloaded?
To bring Windows 98, gonna bring it up from 95 to 98, and then
cool.
Go ahead and get online with AOL, get on the horn with them and find out what the hell the problem is.
Gotcha, okay. As soon as it's up, I'll send you the document that I had read to you before, written. It's an internal FBI memo that specifically states that Belmont had given an order to, with the guy who wrote the memo, I had not heard of this guy's name, Bryce Jevons, to Mr. Conrad, which is one of, the top guys, and it's the one that says, my memorandum of 11/23/63 set out additional information relating to the sale and distribution of the Western manufactured 6.5 millimeter, ammunition used in the assassination.
Yeah.
And that particular document.
Let me raise my volume here just a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. that memorandum was written in response to Mr. Belmont's instructions that every effort be made to trace the ammunition on the possibility that some of it may be traced into Oswald's hands. Now, just that first paragraph is bad, not bad enough, but I mean, that the memorandum was 11/23/63, the day after they were trying to trace the ammunition. Now, here's when I send this to you, you can look at the time signature that I'm looking at, and it almost appears as though there was a generation of interest in getting that to Oswald or near Oswald that predated the assassination, okay? It goes on to say that the Springfield office has advised that they have obtained, I think I already read all this to you. You want me to continue anyway?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, has advised that they have obtained, through contact at the Western Cartridge Corporation, East Alton, Illinois, copies of that corporation's records relating to the manufacture of this ammunition. Western manufactured 4 million rounds of this ammunition for the United States Marine Corps during 1954, attached as a 2-page copy of the records of Western relating to the complete manufacture of this order of ammunition, which is authorized under government contract DA 23196 ORD 27.
That was for the Guatemala operation in 54.
Okay. Then the next paragraph says, the interesting thing about this order is that it is for ammunition which is not fit and cannot be fired in any of the United States Marine Corps weapons. This gives rise to the obvious speculation that it is a contract for ammunition placed by CIA with Western under a United States Marine Corps cover for concealment purposes.
Right.
This information is being furnished Division 5 and 6 for whatever further investigative activities deemed warranted. This seems like a very important document to me.
Yeah, well, see, my first question was where did Oswald supposedly get his ammunition from?
Mm-hmm.
And was there anybody in Dallas that could resize the cartridge casing so that they would fit in a Carcano?
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I guess I was about, 46, 10 years old when I got a Japanese Arasaka IG-38, which shot 7.7.
Mm-hmm.
And then another Japanese rifle shot 6.5. Couldn't find any goddamn ammo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just wasn't. I found some one day in a pawn shop in downtown Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
But you could never really be sure it was the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can put a cartridge inside and it goes in the chamber, but you're really not sure that it's in there fitting properly, and the shoulders are up against the forward end of the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, the whole cartridge blows out.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to dig the thing out, and you're also risking an overpressure problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or having a slug go halfway out the barrel, stop in the middle, and block your barrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking, too, doesn't the Carcano require a clip that holds 6 rounds?
Yeah, and you can't put in just 3 or 4 rounds and insert it. It has to be a full clip.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody jacked out the other rounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is...
Like an M1 rifle holds 8. You got to put in the full 8.
Mm-hmm. Now, couldn't the Carcano have...
tried to do it. First, the loaded clip is inserted and it goes in, it clicks against the lock, and there's a little button on the forward side of the trigger guard to release the clip when you want to put another one in. But there's a very strong follower made of steel with a very strong spring, and you're pushing that son of a bitch down in there. It's not like a Mauser stripper clip where you insert it in and it sits there and your thumb just extracts the bullets from the clip down into the magazine that has a follower, and then you throw that little stripper clip away. That's the Springfield Mauser style. In this case, the clip, the whole thing goes in, and it goes in rather difficult. And if you tried to do it with less than a full clip, the follower would push those rounds to the top, and then you couldn't get the clip to go in and lock. Weisberg had one of those, but he didn't have a clip or ammunition for it out at his house in Maryland. I was going to demonstrate that to him.
Nick, could you also, well, you could put another round in the chamber or not? You could.
No.
Not in the Mannlicher.
The bolt with a full clip, when it goes forward, it strips off the number 1 of 6 rounds.
Okay. So
you could hand feed one in,
mm-hmm.
but then you've got a problem that what's called the extractor,
mm-hmm.
it has to clip over the brass cartridge case,
mm-hmm.
and it may not do that.
Uh-huh.
So now you have a bolt that deforms and is not gripping.
Uh-huh.
So you have rimmed ammo, semi-rim, you got fully rimmed, semi-rimmed,
mm-hmm.
no rimmed ammo,
mm-hmm.
and people got to know that kind of shit.
Uh-huh.
It's like the British 303
mm-hmm.
rifle has rimmed ammo. Their Bren gun had fully rimmed ammo,
mm-hmm.
and you had to always make sure that each top round was just set, an eighth of an inch ahead of the rim below it, otherwise
uh-huh.
you'd get hung up.
Uh-huh.
And on these Mauser type or Mannlicher type weapons, they're semi-rimmed,
mm-hmm.
and will they'll feed okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if it hasn't stripped in, if you try, like you put it in with your finger and then close the bolt,
mm-hmm.
it wouldn't necessarily be gripping the cartridge case. So now when you pull the trigger and open the bolt, the cartridge case stays in there.
Yeah.
And has expanded to a point where you have to pry it out.
Uh-huh.
Now you're just like Custer and his boys at Little Bighorn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that all makes a lot of sense. And then we're back to that question.
Watch, what the hell is it? One of the Discovery channels has the Guns of War or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And they show Japanese, German, and what have you.
Yeah.
And this last week they had the Garand, and it was very interesting to watch when the Army in 1939, when they were accepting the Garand
mm-hmm.
M1 semi-automatic, they had a cameraman there off at a 45-degree angle,
mm-hmm.
and they were showing this guy with a Springfield and a guy with a Garand,
mm-hmm.
and the Springfield guy's cranking off them rounds, no problem, and they show that each time the Springfield has to be recocked, it's pulled out of the guy's shoulder,
mm-hmm.
he loses sight of the target, and then, the whole business,
mm-hmm.
which nobody wants to pay attention
Right.
to.
Right.
And that's with iron sights.
Mm-hmm.
It's even worse with the scope.
Yeah.
And if the problem with that kind of scope, I discovered as a young man, was that when you fired the weapon with the type of scope that supposedly Klein's was selling, and other people were selling,
mm-hmm.
you had to acquire a target. You had to have your eye very close to
mm-hmm.
the end of the scope,
mm-hmm.
and there's no rubber padding on it. And when you fired, that scope went right back into your eye and
mm-hmm.
left you with a black eye,
mm-hmm.
or worse.
Uh-huh.
But I guarantee you, anybody that acquired a target through that scope, pulled the trigger, didn't fire a second shot
yeah.
using that scope because
yeah.
he wouldn't be able to see out of that eye.
And that would be the same thing with the Carcano?
Well, this is why whenever the FBI or anybody else were doing their demonstration, you see the guy with his head way back away from the
yep.
scope.
And the tripod.
And, you can absolutely see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's faking it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, their excuse is the typical Posner type excuse is, well, he might have just ignored the scope and used the iron sight.
Yeah.
Well, there's a problem there. The iron sights weren't worth a shit.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't adjustable. They were fixed, unlike
mm-hmm.
the Garand and the Springfield and the Mausers and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have barleycorn sights,
mm-hmm.
so you couldn't adjust for windage.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to zero the weapon in, and if the sights were off, there wasn't a goddamn thing you could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
You hit it with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
That's for a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't have, as many of the Mausers and others, a slotted groove up on the front sight that you could tap lightly with a hammer
mm-hmm.
when you were zeroing the weapon in initially before it was issued.
Mm-hmm.
But no windage correction, so
mm-hmm.
at a distance, and there's a little bit of wind.
You're screwed.
It's going to throw your round off.
Yeah.
Strike off.
Yeah.
And there's a formula for that. For each mile of hour per wind per 100 yards, and how many clicks you got to click it and all that shit.
But you couldn't even adjust the iron sights on the Carcano.
Of course not.
Right.